If I were to say the name Baby Jessica, I bet many of you would be thinking of the exact same thing. You might flip back to 1987, if you were around back then, and you would think of a little baby, 18-month-old, named Jessica, who got stuck in a tube or a pipe that was sticking up from underneath the ground. So the diameter was 8 inches. So that's got to be about like that, 8 inches, the diameter of that opening. And an 18-month-old baby Jessica fell in and dropped 22 feet beneath the ground. She was stuck there for many, many hours as people tried to figure out how to get her out. And became a nationwide story everybody was thinking about and praying for baby Jessica and her family. And after many, many hours, they were finally able to rescue her. They did that by drilling a parallel tube down to the ground, more than 22 feet down, and then a vertical. No, I did that. I got that wrong, didn't I? A vertical tube coming from the ground down, and then a horizontal tube coming from there that would get to where she was, and they had to break through the tube that she was stuck in without hurting her, of course. And they were able to do that. Kind of neat that they designed it to be the shape of a cross, a vertical and a horizontal. I got it right that time. But they were able to get her out, and today Jessica is alive and doing fine, and she has a family of her own and living in the state of Texas, and from what I know. But anyway, I was thinking about that because of what David writes in Psalm 31 when he talks about being in a spacious place, that the Lord led him to a spacious place. That would not describe the place that baby Jessica was in for those many hours when she was stuck as an 18-month-old. She was more confined than free. And as far as we know, David he had never gotten stuck in a pipe. But boy, there were things in his life that confined him, that he was not able to get out of easily, like from the very beginning when we meet him. He was confined in some way by his birth order. When it was time to pick the next king from the family of Jesse, and they went through all the brothers, and these are the older ones, and these are the good-looking ones, and these are the strong ones. But David wasn't even considered at first until God had to connect the dots and get them to the one who was out watching the sheep. But he was confined by his birth order. He was confined by his size. He was confined by his inexperience compared to the other soldiers. When he went up against Goliath, it's like, no way you can defeat this giant. You shouldn't even try. You shouldn't even think about it. His brothers said that. The king said that. He was confined by his size, his inexperience. Later on in life, he was confined by his flesh, his weakness against lust. Very closely related to that and all of that, another part of it was his arrogance, his self-pride, which led him to maybe be a little bit more vulnerable as he was going up against his enemies in the spiritual battles, but he was confined by that. He was too weak. He was too small. And then eventually he was confined by his guilt. He carried it with him for a year, and that's the year we'll read about this in an upcoming psalm, where he says his bones wasted away through his groaning all day long, and he couldn't get himself out of it. And so he was stuck. And yet we look at the life of David, and none of those things really confined him, because the Lord set him free from all of them. The Lord is the one who chose him as king. The Lord is the one who led him into the one-on-one battle against Goliath and gave him the victory. The Lord is the one who sent the prophet Nathan to David, who was confined by his guilt and his weakness, the knowledge of it. The prophet who, after David finally acknowledged, I've sinned against the Lord. I mean, he had nothing else to say. He was so confined by who he was and what he did. Nathan looked at him and said, Well, the Lord has removed your sin. The Lord has removed your sin. The Lord set him free from it. The Lord set him free from what confined him. He was free. Free from guilt. Free from his sin. And free to know that a God who will do that, who forgives and is merciful and is loving to people like David and to people like us who don't deserve it. Boy, he's never going to treat us any different. He's always going to love us and care for us because that's who he is. I don't know in what ways you can relate to the life of David, and if you've ever felt confined by your birth order or confined by your size or strength in comparison to somebody else's. If you've ever felt confined by expectations that people have of you. I'm pretty sure, though, you have felt confined by your sinful weakness and confined by guilt when you realized that it showed up again, that it owned you again. And we feel so stuck in those moments. But we're not. Because the Lord did for us what the Lord did for David. And he did it by confining himself to an ugly piece of wood with some really harsh nails pounded into him under a really dark sky and an undeserved punishment. He confined himself to hell. So you could be free to expect heaven and nothing less. So that you could be free to expect the enduring love of God who sees your life and loves loving you in it. When David describes a spacious place, these are the kind of things he has in mind. It's not like a literal place. It's like we have 40 acres to run around on. It's really God setting our hearts free from everything that confines them. And that's what we see Jesus doing as we watch him go step by step towards the cross. Step by step, step by step. He's remembering what confines us. He's remembering that on our own we're stuck. And he's determined to set us free from it. And he already has. He already has. You're not confined anymore, my friends. You're free. So go be free. And rest well tonight, my friends.